Catson TV.
Hey everybody, it's your guest reviewer JB here for Catson TV. Today we're going to be doing a little double feature. We're going to be talking about the Paul and Linda McCartney album Ram. And we're also going to be talking about the album Thrillington by Percy Thrillington. Before we get started on that, I want to ask you to please subscribe to this channel for more cultural content coming out regularly. And please consider underwriting the efforts. There are links to Patreon and Ko-Fi below, right there. You see it? Yeah, that's right. Dive right into it, man. Okay, Paul and Linda McCartney, Ram. Now, interestingly enough, in the Paul McCartney discography, this is the only album so credited to Paul and Linda McCartney. This is before Wings. This is that period between the Beatles and before Wings. There are a couple McCartney albums in there. Just for context, this album came out in 1971 on Apple Records, right? There was a Paul McCartney album out in 1970, just the eponymous Paul McCartney album. See a picture of it here. That one was recorded entirely by Paul McCartney at home on a 4-track machine. It's got a very homespun, kind of demo-ish, very rough quality to it. That was done in the last days of the Beatles. But this album here, Ram, this is his first proper solo post-Beatles album. This is an amazing thing. Let me tell you, it was done in New York and a little bit in London at Abbey Road with Paul and a number of session musicians, and there are some orchestrations on there as well. Now, I know that this album took a critical beating when it came out. Apparently, I went back and looked at some of the reviews of the time when this album came out. It was just mercilessly savage, and not just by the critics, by former bandmates. John Lennon and even Ringo Starr had said, oh, there's nothing good on it. It's a bunch of tossed off wankery and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what they were listening to, man, but this is some incredibly composed, orchestrated, incredibly played stuff. You get a sense of where Paul McCartney was at compositionally with the things that came on with the last couple Beatles albums, some of the things that were on Abbey Road. You know, he was going towards this more lush, orchestrated thing for his compositions. He was getting interested in some very, let's say advanced harmonies at points. Some amazing stuff was going on, and that's what this sounds like. You know, there are a couple things in there that sound to me, to my ear, with the orchestration that's put on there, it sounds like, well, some of the compositions from, that late psychedelic era, from the Magical Mystery Tour kind of thing, the McCartney things on there, like Hello Goodbye and Your Mother Should Know. But taken even further, going further in there, there's this one tune on there, Dear Boy. Sounds like, if you take it and you reduce it down to the component parts, you take away the rock and roll elements, it's like, man, this sounds like Bach, what's going on here. There's a lot of interesting movements going on in the harmonies, and it's just fascinating stuff. But let me just say, the whole album isn't just, that part of McCartney's compositions. There's some rockers on there, too. This is really great stuff, he always gets the rap as being, oh, he's egomaniac, broke up the Beatles, blah, 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 just writes all, what did John Lennon called it, like granny music, this kind of thing at one point. It's like, look, the man had his style, and yes, some of it, I think is just some of the greatest stuff in the world, and some of it I don't care for. But that's the way it is with anybody's music. And a little brief side note, as far as the end of the Beatles goes, you know what I'm saying? It's like 1 minute Paul McCartney was the bad guy, and then Yoko Ono was the bad guy, and then Alan Klein was the bad guy. Whatever, it's like, the thing ran its course, all right? No more pointing fingers, let's just move forward. And that's what this album does. It moves things forward. I'm telling you, it seems like, the man had something to prove, And he proved it on this album. It's great. You know, the big hit maybe everyone kind of knows is Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, and, you know, Hands Across the Water. That's the hit that everyone knows from this one. It's not entirely representative of what's on the rest of the album, but it gives you an idea of sort of what's going on. It's very much just, you know, late Beatles, just kind of exploding forth into something new, breaking through the shell and moving on to the next thing. So I'm telling you, great album, great composition. Now, the interesting side note to this album, the asterisk that kind of goes off onto, you know what I'm saying, the unexplored realms as far as this album goes. Whilst this album was being recorded, McCartney hired a composer and orchestrator, arranger, Richard Hewson, to record another version of the same album. So what Hewson did was essentially make an instrumental version, instrumental sort of big band, modern big band. I don't even know what you would call this. It's kind of beyond genre a little bit. He took that stuff, he took the basic compositions, and he arranged them into something really new and different under the name of Percy Thrillington. And the album was just called Thrillington. And let's see a picture of the album cover here. As you can see, there's a ram on the album cover that sort of ties it in. But apart from that, there was no direct information on the album cover tying it. It wasn't released as a Paul McCartney album. It didn't say, you know, Paul McCartney's new album when it was released. That's kind of one of the interesting things. It wasn't released until 6 years until after it was actually recorded. Because Ram took such a beating at the hands of the critics, maybe McCartney had sort of cold feet about putting out another album that went even further than that in terms of, I don't know, you know, non-rock and roll kind of sounds. And so it was released, Thrillington that is, the album Thrillington was released with very little fanfare in 1977. As I said, McCartney's name wasn't on it. The only thing that you could directly, you know, tie it into being Paul McCartney is if you look at the back cover here, this illustration, we see a reflection of McCartney's face in this window, sort of a little subtle in-joke. You know, the thing is, Paul McCartney didn't even actually acknowledge that this was one of his albums or something he was involved with until I think it was like the late 80s at a press conference. Somebody said, "What about Thrillington? What's the story with this?" "Oh, yes, et cetera, et cetera." You know, fascinating stuff. I mean, this thing, I love Ram. I just think those tunes on there are just amazing. But the Thrillington thing, I might even like it a little bit more because it speaks to, you know, my sensibilities a little bit more. There's lots of, you know, harmonized saxophone sections. There's these wordless vocals that brings to mind, remember the Swingle Singers? Did like those Bach arrangements and this kind of thing. There's that on a couple of the tunes, couple of the arrangements. They have ba ba da ba do ba ba da da, et cetera, et cetera. This kind of scat singing, but all harmonized. It's just, man, it's just amazing stuff. I mean, both of them together, two sides of the same coin for me, and both of them, you know, priceless coins. Golden coins, you know what I'm saying, raining down from the sky. That's what this is for me. You know, fortune, you know, just coming in. Oh, look, here comes a golden coin right into my pocket. Boing! It's like that. Just getting, you know what I'm saying, a little amazing sprinkle of positivity and good music. So wrapping it up, you know, your double feature today has been Paul and Linda McCartney, Ram, and Thrillington by Percy Thrillington. Check them out.
To find out more about Ram and Thrillington, please visit paulmccartney.com and check out the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to CatSynth TV.
Your guest reviewer JB, and you have been watching CatSynth TV.